Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And first, I'd like to thank all our distinguished panel today. The topic at this time is quite appropriate because fueling the growth of the Islamic digital economy is key in the sense that, the Malaysian economy is not growing that great. The last quarter was around 2.9%, and we cannot sustain that sort of rate in order to escape the middle income trap. If you look at the whole digital economy, it's contributing 25% or 23% of the GDP, but that's also a distorted amount because they combine all the semiconductors, everything as part of the measurement. So there's a better measurement to come in terms of later on of measuring the contribution of the digital economy. So in terms of really for Islamic digital economy, I think we have the next session where we will talking about the reports that are going to be released by MDAC, Roslina and team. Here, this discussion, because there are so many fintechs here, I like to go around a bit of fintech, and we look to digital commerce. Simon is also, and we'll talk about supply chain. But for us to fuel the economy, it is about scaling, not at this size of the Islamic digital economy. It's too small to have an impact to the economy. If you look at fintech, Islamic fintech, I was told around 5% of the overall fintech is still very nascent stage. So the whole idea later we do is to how to scale up. Number one, how to scale up the whole Islamic digital economy from digital commerce to the area of fintech or social finance or supply chain or the halal digital side of the halal economy. So scaling up is number one. Number two is about rapid innovation. Because the whole digital economy is accelerating very fast. And the engine of the digital economy is all big data, AI, machine learning, and the other technology that, cloud and all these things. These are the technology that is powering the whole digital economy, which is part of the whole digital Islamic economy. The three themes that I was told by MDAC to discuss is first is about the whole experience of the banks. We have my colleagues from the banks asking them the question about their, in terms of their experience in working with fintech, because for us in the bank, I'm looking at fintech is an odd couple, whether they are competitors or they complement us. Sometimes I have seen charts that show fintech is like surrounding the banks, trying to eat them their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that's the perception of some part of the global banks looking at how to protect their business from the fintech, which is having greater innovation. So I will ask Dato' Rafiq from Maybank is quite in the forefront of working with fintech. I wanted to ask Dato' Rafiq is, what is his prime motivation to really work with fintech?
Thank you, Dato'. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Thank you, MDAC, for organizing this session, as well as inviting us to be here. So maybe to your question, Dato', is in terms of what drives us as a financial institution, whether it's conventional, whether it's Islamic, when it comes to technology, when it comes to digital adoption. One of the primary things that we wanted to actually do was financial services is evolving. And for banks to actually be relevant moving forward, we need to not just be able to serve the traditional businesses that we currently have, like, for example, providing financing. It has to be cheaper, faster, it has to be more inclusive. Then the next level is growing. Two points here. The first one is growing in a market whereby it's well banked, right, like Malaysia, where the level of banking penetration is already quite high. And then subsequently is in countries whereby we have footprints, right? Whether it's Indochina, whether in other countries, how do we reach out to customers who traditionally will find it difficult to actually go to, say, for example, a bricks and mortar financial services company? So for us is when we look at fintech, when we look at technology is, can we provide a more relevant service for the banking of the future? Can we work with partners who are able to actually expand our offering as well, Datuk? And then the other one is, as we start to actually understand and evolve our customers, there are parts which the banks themselves, no matter how sizable, would not be able to move as quickly, be as innovative, and then subsequently is to be able to actually integrate that experience with the customer in a much more seamless way. So maybe back to your original question, what drives us is we want to actually not just continue to survive, but also to thrive as well.
Okay, thank you. Azam, what is driving you to work with FinTech?
Okay, thank you, Dato'. Actually, it's quite a privilege for me to be in this session. Thank you, MDEC. And another privilege is having Dato' Rafiq next to me and having to take the questions first. So probably adding to the point, because I think the context could be quite similar. For us, because what is unique about FinTech that we appreciate, because sitting where we are probably 6 years ago, the fear at that time was that, Dato', like you mentioned just now, FinTech is going to come in and become real competitor. But our experience over the years, and we've been working with some of them, is that it's a lot more collaboration. And even the FinTechs also, they realize that they need to, at least for those who are working with us, they see the value working with us, for example. And the motivation for us is, like Dato' Rafiq mentioned, in some of the areas is that innovation, because they can come with ideas that banks at that time probably we have not thought about it yet. Secondly is in terms of technology, something that we have not embarked on, so that's something that can be brought forward. But the more value that I see is that they can come in and make our proposition to be a lot more complete. And for example, where the FinTechs are strong at, what we saw from our experience is that they can be quite deeply involved in certain segments that probably we are not touching that much. But however, for us and them, going into that segment, it means that a new market segment completely. But the FinTech can also leverage on our resources to be able to do that. So that is where we leverage on the strength of FinTech. The other thing is that in terms of doing things in a different way, for example, when we look at how we assess a credit score for our customers, so they can come in with, for example, like alternative methods, using alternative data and all that. So the focus that we do at Bank Islam when we choose which FinTech we work with currently would be in terms of what can further enrich and enhance our proposition. So I'll give you an example. We are also big into financial inclusion, driving usage of social financial instruments. So there's certain parts of the economy that we say that, despite the fact that Rafiq did mention that, banking penetration is quite high in Malaysia, that is from perspective of deposit. But when talk from the perspective of credit, then there is really a big segment where the banks, established financial institutions are not serving. And that is because, for example, certain issues regarding reach, certain issues regarding visibility of their background in order for us to determine their credibility and all that. But that is an area that we say, for example, in Islamic banks, we say that we must be able to do this. And the only way now we are able to do it because we work with FinTechs. One is because they have access to those kind of data that we don't have. And secondly is that they also have that enabling tool that enable us to do it. So if I can give one example of them, because I saw their banner in here that we work with, is that one of the problem statement that we were trying to resolve with these micro entrepreneurs that we are dealing with them is that we want to enable them to be able to do their record keeping properly. So that's one thing, because that's one thing that we see is lacking. But the other thing is that when we do financial inclusion, the metrics for us is not the profitability that we get from that segment, but metrics for us would be in terms of the impact from the day that we come in to support them, 12 months after that, how well have they grown? That is the kind of impact that we want. So by working with this particular fintech is that not only that particular or those participants, micro entrepreneurs that we work with, they've got a tool now that they can use, which is easy, seamless to them, that will work as a point of sale for them, that will do record keeping for them, like bookkeeping and all that, then they can prepare their financial statements. But at the same time, at the back end, we have got information regarding them of how much sales they've made and all that. And what we are able to do with that at the back end is that we're able to build credit track record for them. So that enables us to, it helps them that now their credit track record are established. It enables us to determine how much more are we able to go into supporting them. So this is one example of how we work with fintech that can come in and bring in a solution to further enrich our proposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, 3 years ago, I would ask the bank, this question. People will be shocked if they have the reply like this. Probably it's one sort of a transformation among some of the banks to work with fintech. But I will ask Simon because Simon runs more on the digital commerce, because digital commerce is very, very key as part of the Bandandi concept of lifting the micro enterprise, lifting people out of poverty, income, so that, one of the Madani framework is that Malaysia has to be a global producer of halal products, I mean, not to compare to Indonesia because I was in the IDB meeting just 2 months ago where Indonesia has made a vision that they want to be the global producer of halal product. And because, why should Muslim be consuming product from China and not from Islamic countries? To have the big vision like that. So all this can happen through digital commerce because you need to have a platform economy to drive the SMEs to export their product because Malaysia is too small a market. And that require, building the whole infrastructure of digital commerce, and then that would probably accelerate growth of fuel the new growth because fueling growth is about export because of our domestic market is small. So what do you feel about, our state of digital commerce and the ecosystem like payment? Are they integrated to drive a more Islamic digital, digital commerce?
Thank you, Dr. Hamza, and thank you, MDAC, for inviting me. I believe there are a huge number of players in the market over the last 5 years in the Islamic digital economy that have arisen. This is, of course, to address that there's a saying in England, we are a nation of shopkeepers. Everyone's a shopkeeper of some shape, form, size, or other. And what I've noticed in Malaysia is more and more people, even though you have a full-time job and pushed by COVID, have decided to find that special product and start marketing it. And when you market a product, it's more than just putting a product in a packet and hoping that the product will magically find its way overseas. When you have a baby, it's the most beautiful baby in the world. When you have a product, it's the most wonderful product in the world. But then you've got to look at it from the other side. What help do you need to get your baby from here to be appreciated and loved by people across the world? Digitalization has allowed the democratization of small entrepreneurs. It's just an ascent, but it's growing. I have seen vendors with very simple products slowly get the confidence and upgrade it into selling pallets and pallets over in the UK. To tell someone that they're not able to do something in today's world when if you look around the room, you'll see a number of services that help the small vendor. And these are a growing number. So to your point, I think it's a fantastic way to look at that market, the fintech solutions. my role in this entire ecosystem is to ensure people on the other side of the world understand and get a product that they're going to buy. They've got to understand it as well. And it's holding hands, it's a chain link of events from here right until it ends up in a customer's hand that has never heard the word rendang before. And it's a fantastic journey, and fintech really goes out of its way. We ourselves, as an e-commerce developer platform, use a number of other Malaysian Islamic digital economy services in order to deliver it.
Okay, I mean, just to go back on the thing is, what is stopping us from moving fast to become a global player in the e-commerce, in the digital commerce Islamic world? Because, you know, the population is huge. People talk about the population, but I think Malaysia, you know, what is really stopping us to really grow big and scale out?
That's a brilliant question, Dato' Hamzah. What's stopping us from growing? First of all, we cannot see, if we're selling a pen, it's one thing. If we're selling a calculator, it's one thing. But if you're selling Malaysian product, halal Malaysian product, people on the other side have to realize, first of all, Malaysia, and second of all, that it's a Muslim product or it's halal. And third, they need to understand the product. You can't afford to send something like ayam masak merah across the seas and expect people to buy it just because it's Malaysian and it's halal. They need more than that. There's an awareness that's required. You know, that model of awareness, interest, desire, and action, awareness of what we're selling. We can't assume that everyone understands what dodol is or what. A lot of people I've met are quite surprised to see pineapple on top of a biscuit. When you think about it, it is strange. But this is the kind of awareness we need. Once we get the awareness that we're talking a language that people don't actually understand, we're halfway there. We need to help them understand what it is in a form that they understand. And next, we need to introduce Malaysia. Everywhere I've gone in the world, if you mention the word Malaysia, it's a great Muslim country. We've got a good name out there. So let's, and that's what I believe needs to be done. It's an unseen quantity, not understanding that people sometimes may not understand what the product is itself.
Yeah, okay. I think this is a question that, I mean, the whole digital marketing and awareness and it requires a whole of government approach doing this. I want to go to Dato' Rafiq in terms of fintech. If you look at a country like Bahrain and the Middle East, banks take equity into the fintechs. You know, they become a strong partnership. So in terms of supporting them, in moving forward, does the bank feel that they can, part of the Sharia, of risk sharing, be part of the ecosystem in participating? And if you were looking at those companies, what sort of fintech you would look for? Is that those with better governance? They have a better innovative product. They're very driven by very unique value proposition. So what sort of thing you're looking? Because a lot of fintech also complain to me, and it takes years to work with the banks to get it through. They get very frustrated. So how do you manage this odd couple, the different expectation?
Thank you. So at Maybank, for example, we have three models. One is we would invest in capabilities ourselves. And then the other model, the other extreme is, are we open to actually taking equity, which we are, which we have done. And then the middle bit is whether we can actually partner or collaborate with some of these fintech companies in order to actually complete, say, for example, an ecosystem. Maybe I'll give you an example as well. I think in the audience, there's one MDEC company that has actually signed up with us. And the intention for us was, what do they provide to this outcome that we desire? Like, for example, when it comes to our own aspiration for the halal industry, right? For Maybank Islamic, we have been at this for a while. We've looked at the halal industry for a good number of years. And suddenly we realized, to Simon's point, that providing financing alone is just one part. Then the other part is, how do we find them this very good small size, medium size, sizable halal companies that want to actually grow big, right? The small ones require a different kind of intervention. So what we did was, maybe they require training. Maybe they require, for example, understanding the journey to get halal certification, right? Even that bit, we are working or collaborating with two fintech providers. One is the halal assurance, right? They're providing that service. And then the other one is how to actually maintain and sustain that halal certification. Because you're up for review annually, you need to have that documentation, right? So that's two pain points already for that small-sized micro halal industry player. Then the subsequent stage is, how do we assist when, for example, they want to scale up? So we worked with Central Kitchen Agency. I think they have 5. 3 of them have gone for halal certification themselves. So that if you're cooking from home, for example, and the neighborhood knows that you're selling very good food, but you can only serve maybe 10, 20, 30 clients a day, if they're good, how can we help them to scale, right? And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have the sizable ones, the big ones, which you will all know them, they are household names, and they want to be able to showcase their products overseas, right? So how do we work with those players? Along that particular journey, we find that if we have clarity about the outcome that we need, then we're able to actually find service providers within the fintech space who's able to actually complement what we ourselves may not have. Certain things like, for example, a credit assessment model. Sometimes we actually use our own. Sometimes there are behavioral analysis parts which we don't have, which we actually invest in, right? Programmers, developers, and so on, we already have employed them within the bank, right, in order to actually have capabilities. But there are still areas that we're not able to do well ourselves, and that's where we are on the lookout for parties that can actually help us to complete this journey. That's for halal. I think the other one that's also quite sizable, if I can share, is when it comes to wealth management, specifically Islamic wealth management. Hopefully some of you are Maybank customers, right? So what we did was, when it comes to, say for example, during Adil Adha, right? There is the obligation to do Qurban. And when we went out there, we realized that there was this one company that could actually offer Qurban services in 38 countries, and you can do it online through our platform. You will get confirmation digitally as well. If we had to invest in that, it would take us a while, right? And that would not be core to us. Then the other one is, Simon is a lawyer by background. We stumbled upon this company that actually was able to provide wasiat, Islamic will, right? It's out there already when we actually launched that. So what this service is, when you read the headlines, we know that there's a lot of assets, wealth trapped because of trying to distribute the Sharia way, Faraid, right? So this company was able to provide us with a service whereby you can actually get your wasiat out in 35 minutes, right? And typically, that process can take days, if not weeks. So when we stumbled upon this company, he's a lawyer, he worked through it, he cleared our Sharia committee, and the next frontier for us is, okay, we're targeting in Malaysia about 50,000, right? The wealth of information within that is going to be huge for us. I know I have a competitor here. But the other one is, because we're able to actually use that same product to go to markets whereby we have a footprint. If in Malaysia we have 10 million customers, in Indonesia, 260 million, 270 million, 85% Muslim population, a simple thing like a wasiat offered by a financial institution which is non-traditional is exciting because of the wealth of information, pun intended, within that wasiat can be used for many things. Right? So banks, especially, say for example, like the one I'm with currently, is we're working with quite a number of players. At the right time, we will start to announce it. I think the recent one that we did was basically like how to actually help you to pay your zakat. There is a zakat calculator to it, right? Even our recent card launch, for example, you can actually calculate based on your spend, emissions coming from your spend, and then how to offset your emission through certain actions that we will enable for you. So these are done by third parties. Right? So for us, it's more a question of trying to understand where the bank is coming from, and then being able to also have a session with us to actually say, okay, look, there are certain parts, there are certain principles that we actually apply when it comes to working with the fintechs. Firstly does it drive for better customer engagement? Does it solve the customer's problem? Is it something which is complementary to what banks typically do, right? And then subsequently if we are able to actually stitch it together well, hopefully it will achieve an outcome that the customer will remain with an institution or a bank throughout their life. So that's quite a mouthful, actually.
Yeah, terrific. I think we need more CEOs like you.
Oh, I do.
No, but what I'm saying is that the scaling up to Indonesia is a very interesting because a huge market. Then they use Maybank as a platform, to scale up. If we can replicate, not only with Maybank, CIMB, we will have a rich, Islamic fintech that is regional and then moving the next stage to the Middle East.
Yeah. There is, if I've made a two, there is one more aspiration that we have in mind. We want to be able to offer Islamic finance on a global scale, right? Some of you may have heard about banking as a service. We may not necessarily have physical presence or license in some countries whereby perhaps we're not as familiar. So the point there is through technology, we should be able to actually offer Islamic financial services in countries that have actually been coming to see either to see Bank Islam, Muazzam, or even to Maybank Islamic to say, can you offer Islamic finance in countries whereby it's a Muslim minority country, right? And banking the traditional way to apply for a license can be cumbersome, can be expensive. So we want to actually be able to work with partners whereby if there is demand for Islamic finance, for the principles of Sharia that we hold dear, right, is universal in nature, can we work through technology to be able to offer to frontier countries?
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Muazzam, you're quite nice with the fintech, There are some fintech you don't want to entertain when they come to see you, So when is a fintech ready to really work with you? The second question is social enterprise. We all in the banks are subject to the value-based intermediation. Islamic finance is about social justice, equity. So that's why we are different from the conventional bank, So one is when you see they are ready to work with you. Second thing is, how do you look at the whole social enterprise, ecosystem? For example, I have one of this social enterprise in mental health, So for example, beyond fintech, how do we go beyond that to enrich the whole Islamic digital ecosystem?
Okay, thank you, Dato'. So the first question probably is also a continuation to what Dato' Rafiq mentioned. This is now I'm narrating in terms of our experience, yeah. Because, for us, we are not venture capital. So we don't go out there to look for fintechs. But what we do is that we look at what is our current offering, what will enrich our customers' experience, and how do we go out and find solutions. So that's why, it's good that we've got privilege, we've got MDEC, we've got lead here, Bikesh is here, that we are able to go to them to say that I need to find someone who can do this for me from fintech perspective. And through that experience, there have been fintechs that can come in and plug in the gap, like Datuk Rafiq mentioned just now. And the way how we go in, Datuk, is typically this is through our experience with some of these fintechs, right? Funding is a constraint for them. They may have ideas, but to develop it to the next stage that we can launch it as a product within our bank, it requires certain additional amount of, for example, at least time cost, resources, and all that needs to be involved. And typically for banks, we are not in a primary business of doing equity investment. So our process for that kind of decision, in the fintech world, that takes forever. That's how they describe it. So the workable solution that will work with fintech, and we've tried before this, and eventually some of them we end up having some equity, is that we start with them providing services to us first. So we solutionize to say that this is capability that you have, this is what we need to have. In terms of your time cost, for you to do it, how much would it cost? And we pay them for that period. And during the time that they're doing development for us, initially as a service provider first, 3 months, 6 months and all that, that's also the time concurrently that we do an assessment on that equity part. So that is where I feel that it works both sides. Because, we still need that time for our own internal governance to make that decision. But at the same time, this fintech, they can start work immediately, cash flow can come in immediately for them. And that is I would say, the workable method that we apply. Secondly, when it comes to social impact organization, I did mention that we are big into financial inclusion and social finance. We have got, for example, our microfinancing program now that has benefited more than 600 participants already. And the way how we do our microfinancing program here is that we work through these social impact organizations, social enterprises, because we don't have the infrastructure to go and find the real small micro entrepreneurs. So we work through the social impact organizations, they do the referral, they do the monitoring. Our role is to do due diligence on these social impact organizations. When we are happy that they've got the right governance, the right impact and all that, then we channel through them. They will do the assessment on the recipient, and we monitor in terms of the performance of the impact and all that. So far it has worked for us, and it has also helped to spur this development of some of the social enterprises in Malaysia. And the ultimate aim for our program is actually helping small micro enterprises as well, which later on we can nurture, and through our collaboration with HDC, where we is a primary partner for their halal integrated platform, and also with Matrade, where we have specific program to nurture our small SMEs for them to be able to sell overseas. That is the continuum that we have, where we nurture from small all the way until they're able to go and market the product overseas.
Thank you, Simon. If you were a digital commerce owner, what would you propose to the bank to help you? What sort of support, financing, all the trade finance to support you to, even in the buying the infrastructure, setting up their front store and all this thing. What would you request to the bank to help you?
Thank you very much for that question. I was going to talk to them about this afterwards as well. Help for a digital business comes in, no two digital businesses are the same. And if we look at the sectors that I'm working in, which is F&B and cosmetics and health supplements and even artwork, we find sometimes the basic level, which is onboarding. And then there's the marketing of that service in the target industry, the target territory. But it's more than that. It's about data. It's all about the data. What I would propose to the banks would be work with fintech players or even digital platforms that can provide you the data to make good decisions on who to back and who not to back and who needs the help. It's fundamental. Opinions vary. Numbers don't lie. And we are the people at the forefront that can actually provide that data to you. It's not about filling in a form, it's about having a dashboard. And you'd immediately see who'd probably need, who's doing well, who's not, why they're dipping, and we can make informed decisions in order to help them. So while all the ancillary things like onboarding and and marketing training and advertising and logistics costs come in, the data will actually give you an exact picture, which I'm sure this is exactly what you all do every day. But we can be channels of that data.
Okay, thank you. One of the challenge we have in growing the Islamic digital economy is institutional issues. It's too fragmented, too many players, and I just want to compliment Maybank for setting up the Islamic economy division, because this is the first bank that set up Islamic economy division that looks at end-to-end, not just fintech, but the whole value chain of the Islamic economy, which I think, I don't want to compare to Indonesia, but Bank Indonesia started many years ago, like our central bank, to have Islamic economy division that integrate the whole thing. Here we have MIFC, which is just look at finance. So moving forward, Dr. Shafiq, I think with all this Madani trying to grow, we need to really re-engineer the whole institution in the Islamic economy. I have already met, the government talking about we need to have Islamic economy within the government to integrate the whole halal economy. Now we have HDC, we have so many institutions. It's all, JAKIM that, that actually fragmented and doesn't do good to anyone. So what is your feeling in terms of institutional issues that we need to address in order to grow and scale up? Dr. Shafiq, yours and...
Okay. Yeah, I do agree because, for example, we see that I think we've got various agencies, various parties in terms of, by virtue of their mandate of the ministry or their areas of specialization. But I think where you're coming from is in the bigger picture in terms of putting the framework, the structure, so that all the relevant agencies and parties that we have in place can move into a specific direction. And this is probably Datuk Rafiq is better in explaining this than me, but we were having these discussions around even when we talk about growing our SME, for example, right? Maybank, Islamic, Bank Islam, and many other banks, we have our own agenda in growing our SMEs, nurturing and all that. But when we talk about growing our company to become global champions, bring it up to the global level, probably we need to have a view of who are going to be the champions, that all banks, in a way, there's so many of them in Malaysia, can help to support. We can play our role as well, while we help all the smaller ones. So I think this is where, like you mentioned, that probably there can be better coordination on that score.
Okay. Dr. Rafiq, you want to say, Dr. Rafiq?
I think for us, it's been a couple of years, that we looked at how do we break into this halal economy. Because if you read what has been published under, say, for example, the Dinar Standard Report, for example, right, there is Islamic finance on one side, there is the halal economy on the other side, right? And this one is $2.8 trillion, this one is $2 trillion. But when it comes to Islamic finance within the halal economy, in terms of usage, I think it's like less than 10% kind of thing, right? So that was one thing that we wanted to understand better. Then we realized, after we spoke to, say, JAKIM, for example, we need to understand that halal certification addresses a certain part. And then when it comes to Islamic finance, right, for the halal industry, conventional and halal, we have to compete on a level playing field, right? So we said, if our values and our principles are aligned, halal as well as Islamic finance, can we have a better alignment even at the highest level policy? Right. So there was a conversation on that. So we continue to actually, for the platform that we have, for the positions that we actually hold, we have opportunities to actually engage with the policyholders every time, each occasion, to mention that halal is something that cannot be just purely at a national level, because we're trying to serve the global Muslim population. 1.9 billion, 24%. It's got to be much bigger than perhaps the countries. But the champions can come from many countries, right? So then we had this conversation about how come earlier we had this pre-session, right? We spoke about lingam, chili sauce, right? Since our student days, you know that when you miss home, you go to that Chinese supermarket, you can find lingam, right? So then the question now is, how come we cannot find many more? How did they get there? I suspect They got there, right, through their own effort. For us to develop more of these champions, we got to facilitate. It's not about us, it's about them. We got to make sure, for example, for every step of the journey, we help them to be successful, right? So even the experiment that we're running, for example, similar to what Simon did, right? So we said we picked the top 10 best SMEs, for example. We actually hooked them up with our Singapore office, try to get shelf space in the traditional sense, and help them to showcase their products. These are small experiments that we did, right? But we've got to do better than that to be able to scale it, right? One institution may not necessarily have the bandwidth to scale it. I think we need to collaborate better with all Islamic financial institutions, JAKIM,
Right.
HDC, and the rest to be able to say, look, if you're going to create 10, 20 global halal champions, what does it take? Then the question about whether their product needs to be improved, packaging, awareness, financing, whether they're going to fail or succeed, is a secondary question. Yeah. The primary question to my mind
Right.
is if you want to make sure they succeed, what does it take? Then all of us can just get alignment in terms of the contribution that each of us can provide.
Okay.
Right?
So, but tomorrow you have a chance to meet someone VVIP. Probably you should, the banks, it's okay, time up. We give us 1 minute, 2 minutes more. So, you have a chance to meet, tomorrow is a big meeting, I guess, or today, PMX meeting.
Today, this morning.
Today.
There was something.
You should have raised this to him.
We do.
Yeah, so, I mean, it had to be scaled up at that level, So, okay, time's up. I think any urgent question you want to ask the audience? You guys happy with them, or you ask a question later? Okay, one question. Swami. Oh. Yeah.
Always dependable.
I think the Slido is not working this afternoon. That's why it's, one burning question is FDI. As you know, this country, Malaysia, depends a lot on FDI for growth.
Right.
So how can the Islamic digital economy play a big role in terms of FDI? I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm sure there is a way to expand it. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in fact, you are covering my next session on FDI. But maybe I answer for them. I'm also from the bank. I think FDI is coming in a big way. We are talking about what's accumulated around 700 billion in 3-4 sectors, which is semiconductor, data centers, and all this thing. What Swami is saying is that the SME, how do you finance the SME, which is part of the ecosystem? That's going to be your priority because you want to see more innovation. Because in the past, last 20 years, FDI's the inflow of diffusion technology is on the low end, which is we end up as a low labor economy. So the bank has but the question I think I always ask the bank is, do we have the capacity of people who understand semiconductor, data centers, the capacity to evaluate those things? How do you manage this challenge of having the right people to really credit assessment on very high-tech investment? There's something that, how do you address
I think for us, I do agree with you. Probably it could be different from Maybank. For a bank of our size, we choose to be quite specific in terms of focus, in terms of the sector that we want to go in. Because like you mentioned, we need to have certain level of expertise of that particular industry, right. Not just about credit and cash flows and all that. Right. So we do invest, we bring in industry sort of practitioners that work alongside our credit team in terms of for the special areas. And that's how we approach it.
All right, okay.
Quite similar, especially for those where we see as a key thrust for us. Like for example, halal. The moment we're serious about halal, we actually recruited a team to do halal. And then when it comes to Islamic wealth management, if we say that we're quite serious, we want to actually make this a centerpiece of our regional presence, right. Then we actually recruited people who understand what it takes to do not just wealth management in the conventional space, but also on a broader regional, if not global scale. So we do invest in talents. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, and a round of applause to all the great speakers.